He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about to explode bratwurst.
Hey, do you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munson's at the Movies. My name is Kyle. I will once again be your host, joined by the rest of the Munsons. Want to give them a wide berth.
He's what is called a born loser. A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in their worlds. We'll start this time with James.
So I made it 34 years on this earth. I've never had any leg injuries, mostly due to the fact that I have legs that are the size of tree trunks. And then, despite never, ever hurting a leg once in my life, completely out of nowhere, I woke up and it felt like my knee was collapsing in on itself. And so while our guest here that you'll be introduced to shortly is a avid runner, I think I'm one of the first people to almost have to get knee surgery from just sleeping while being old. So that has been pretty shitty. But turns out I didn't tear anything. Everything's good on my end now.
Welcome, James. Welcome.
Dude, I just stood up and was like, oh, well, that doesn't feel like that's working properly. And I sat right back down. I was like, all right, I'm terrified. I've never experienced this before.
That's why Matti doesn't do the podcast anymore, because we all have knee injuries. You can't have these non-runners on his podcast.
No, it's just bad juju, man. You don't want that negative energy around you.
Case.
Well, as you guys know, I troll the Munson at the Movie message boards under the name Posey Munson. And there's a lot of chatter on the message boards that we need to have a mascot. And I was just curious what y'all's first thoughts were for a mascot for our podcast. And do you guys remember the day Posey?
All I think is Parker Posey.
Yeah, I had to connect the dots on this one.
I don't. Kyle, do you want to tell them who Posey is?
You guys remember when I told you the story about how I was presenting and the dog took a huge shit on the stage?
Yeah.
The dog's name was Posey.
That's pretty good.
The message boards are buzzing about what we should do for a mascot, just so you guys know. Any thoughts?
Oh, man. You give me some time, I'll think up some actor that we have just dogged out consistently on here and a role that they've played.
Rigby.
So yeah, I've spent the last couple days researching everything there is to know about Brie Larson. To now that she's a member of the Fast and Furious universe, trying to figure out the day that James is going to try to stump us with some Brie Larson facts. Also, would be a fun one to do on the pod, by the way.
Today could be that day.
I really admire you guys willing to do research. I think that's impressive.
He was just on the wheel recently. Yeah, Rigby, I was going to say the same thing. I'm just genuinely excited for James getting a chance to dump Brie into the facts. I think he's going to go on a run. Just like this all started because he went on a Vin Diesel run for 3 episodes, and it's just been a running joke for 57 more. I think there's a chance he might go on a Brie kick, or if I get lucky, he's on a Shea Wiggum kick. We'll get there.
When I'm a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I'm calling you if a question from that comes up.
Yeah, and I'll sadly know it, and I'm gonna answer kind of depressed, be like, yeah, what do you want to know?
Well, we're excited to welcome back Matti Groll. He is formerly a host of a weekly movie review podcast, but now he focuses on creating gaming content on YouTube and Twitch. He recently finished his doctorate in biomedical engineering out in Boston, but is lucky enough to do content creation full time. He still loves podcasting and considers it an honor to be welcomed back to the Munsons to talk about movies and TV. I promise he wrote that himself. We did not put that in there.
I did not.
Did your wife write that?
He's putting words in my mouth. That's all Kyle.
Just like I put into the show notes, right? That's what I'm here for. But he was previously here with us for the Sam Rockwell and Chris Hemsworth episode. Welcome back, Matti. How's life? How are you? And tell us about the YouTube and Twitch world.
Life is good. Thanks so much for having me back, guys. It's been a really, really long time, and it feels like one of those things that I can measure time passing by when my next appearance on the Munsons is, because it's like when we schedule it, it's like that's 8 months away. That's a whole nother lifetime away, and then I get the email that it's in 2 weeks, and I'm like, what the? It's been 8 months. Life's been good. YouTube's been really wild. It's been a really quick and fun ride, mostly up, which has been fortunate and lucky. So I'm just really happy that I'm get to do all sorts of fun stuff with all types of people like you guys and all sorts of other content creators. It's just been a blast.
It's awesome, dude. Good to have you back, man.
Yeah, man, I love having you on.
Yeah, I've missed talking about movies. Sometimes when I'm on the stream stuff, it's all gaming and Pokemon stuff, but every now and then someone will be like, have you seen this movie? What do you think? And I get to go on my little 5-minute spiel of the movie that nobody asked for. So thanks for having me back to talk movies. I appreciate it.
Just start talking to random people at the grocery store about movies. See how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
Just what they want. A white male coming up to them to talk about movies when they didn't ask for it.
Let me tell you what you should know about Hailee Steinfeld.
You need to know my opinion immediately.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to do a plug later in the show so you can just stun on people with how many damn views you have on your YouTube account. It's ridiculous. 178,000 subscribers. That's wild.
No big deal.
Why are you not one of them? That's what I'm asking. What else do I have to do?
Beg.
Seriously, let me know.
All bots?
All bots.
All Russian bots.
Yeah.
As soon as they shut it down in Russia, it was amazing. It went down significantly. It was odd, very odd. All right, Matti, let's have some fun. Let's get into Hailee Steinfeld. But before we do that, we're going to get into some birthdays for April 21st. Rigby, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so I thought we'd start out with a former Munson, a Munson alumni, Gugu Mbatha-Raw. What episode number was that, Kyle? Do you remember?
It was around 15. Yeah, it was early. 15 to 20, somewhere in there.
She's great in Black Mirror.
She is great in Black Mirror. That's one of my favorite Black Mirror episodes.
Same.
I can't remember what movie I even watched for that episode, but
I do.
So
Mine
yeah,
was Cloverfield, and it was awful.
that's
that
right.
movie's so bad.
It was so bad it was fun, but it was so bad.
So if you guys remember, maybe when her career started in that episode, you might be able to guess her age, but who wants to start?
I'm going to throw 32 into the ring.
I was going to say 32. Okay, 33.
Oh, tight window case. Should I continue No, I'm going to go lower. I think she's a little bit younger than that. I'm going to go 28.
36.
James, you crushed it by guessing the oldest. She's turning 39.
Holy shit. Good for
Looks great.
Good for her.
Wow.
You guys were giving her way too much credit for starting her career at such an early age.
Well, wait a minute. How old was she when we recorded? Was she 32 when we did our episode? That's what I was going.
Feels like it, doesn't it?
Yes.
Next up, James McAvoy, X-Men, Split, Glass, Atonement, which is a great movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it. He's a big star in Hollywood. He's one of those guys that I'll try to check out anything that he's in. I like him a lot. So how old's our boy James turning?
43.
It seems like a pretty good guess.
I might be too old.
I don't know, though.
Might be too young, honestly. I'm going to go 45.
All right, well, now I'll go younger. I'm going to go also 36.
48.
Oh, my God, we have no idea.
Matti, right on the dot, 43.
Yes.
My man.
Legend.
I knew he couldn't be approaching 50, but he's
He's put in a pretty good career for himself.
I'm just so discombobulated from Gugu that I'm screwed up now on all my ages.
Last one will be fun then. Mr. Tony Danza. Great Hall of Fame pitcher Mel Clark in Angels in the Outfield.
Hold me closer, Tony Danza.
That's all I think of. The Friends quote.
So I'm going to get you a 72.
I'll go a little younger, 65.
75, I don't know.
So Angels in the Outfield came out in 94. Mel Clark was on the back end of his career, so I got to think he was late 30s, maybe 38. And that was almost 30 years ago. So I'm going to go 68.
Kyle, that theory was bullshit, but you just won. Nice work. You weren't the closest, but by price of right rules, you win. He's turning 71.
That was like the Billy Madison speech during the debate.
Because of it, I reward you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I like it. Good work, Kyle.
You're pulling at my heartstrings talking about Angels in the Outfield. All right, Rigby, we split it up. Everybody except Case got one that time.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Case. You loser.
Mm-hmm.
5 actors onto the wheel. This is episode 60. Holy moly. Those 5 actors that we threw onto the wheel were Julie Hagerty, Nicholas Hoult, the aforementioned Brie Larson, and Chaz Palminteri. But it doesn't matter. Matti didn't even know those 4 were on there until he looked at the show notes because he picked Hailee Steinfeld, who the wheel selected. As you look at her career, and obviously that's why we're here, she's a young actress, so we'll be able to cover a lot of what she's done versus Hideo last time, who had like 140 credits. We cover maybe half. Hailee has 53 credits on her young roster, including 19 films, a lot of music videos. So really, when you think about it, 22 music videos of those 53, she's only got about 30 film and TV credits in the bunch, and that includes 5 shorts. Young actress, always interesting to cover them. We'll start where we always do and see if James can stump us Fast and Furious style.
So I'm about to read 3 facts here. 2 of them are going to be true about Hailee Steinfeld, and one of them is not going to be true about Hailee, but will be true about one of the many successful and illustrious cast members of the Fast and Furious franchise. 10th movie coming out. I know everyone's excited. The story is probably about family. So fact number 1, was homeschooled from the time she was 8 until she graduated high school by the age of 15. Fact number 2, 9th youngest actress ever nominated for Academy Award at the age of 14. Fact number 3, has just under 11 million monthly listeners on Spotify.
I can never remember how sneaky you are with these because she's obviously a singer, right? So I feel like 3 might be correct. And I know for a fact she got nominated for True Grit. I don't know if she was 14 at the time, or if she's the 9th youngest or like the 7th youngest or whatever.
Oh, I mess with numbers. I do as much as I can at this point.
And I mean, he said 11 million. You said 11 million monthly listeners on Spotify. I mean, that easily could just be manipulated. Like, she could be higher or lower.
Yeah.
I do think it's Vin Diesel, and I think it's the one where he got nominated when he was 14 years old. I don't remember what role it was, but I'm sure as a young actor, he was recognized as a true thespian.
Vin Diesel?
Yes, that's mine.
He kind of has homeschooled energy, though, too. I don't know.
I don't know. This is tough, man.
All right. I'm fairly confident that she was homeschooled, to your point, Matti. So I'm going to go with fact 1. Shea Wiggum was homeschooled and graduated high school at 15. I'm riding this lightning as long as I can until I get it right.
Kyle, hop on Shea Wiggum's IMDb and just look at the page in its entirety, because it is a single sentence and then it's his filmography. And the sentence is like, Shea Wiggum's an actor. And then it's just all of his credits. Like, the dude does not have anything online.
Well, Case has an IMDb Pro, so we're going to start feeding him fake facts to put on Shea Wiggum's profile.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, we can make shit up.
I went to high school with that guy, and he was a mean shooting guard.
I'm going to think that James tried to pull a fast one with Brie Larson right out of the gate. So I'm going to go 1 is the lie, and I think that's Brie.
Good guess.
I'm going to say 3 is the lie, and that's a I don't know, 11 million, is that a lot? I don't know, but I'll say that that's actually like, I don't know, Tyrese Gibson or something. I don't know who else is in Fast and Furious.
Luda.
Yeah. Okay, I changed it to Luda. Yeah. That makes way more sense.
First, look at fact number 2. 9th youngest actress ever nominated for Academy Award at the age of 14. That is true. She lost to Melissa Leo, who won for her role in The Fighter, which actually had 2 Best Supporting Actress nominees, because that is one of the many Amy Adams nominations as well. The youngest actress ever nominated for an Oscar was the age of 10, which has happened 4 times. The most recent one being Abigail Breslin for Little Miss Sunshine. So fact number 3, has just under 11 million monthly listeners on Spotify, is true. So this is actually more than any actor in the Fast and the Furious franchise. And if you think about it, there's a lot of musicians in that franchise. There's Ludacris, Ja Rule, Bow Wow, and Tyrese. It's more than any of them alone. But if you were actually combined all of their monthly listeners, it's just 2 million less than all of them combined.
So get your shit together.
For real.
That's what are you doing?
Fact number 1, was homeschooled from the time she was 8 until she graduated high school at the age of 15. While Hailee was homeschooled from the age of 12 to coincide with her acting schedule and the travel that was associated with it, this is actually recently announced star of the 10th installment of the Fast and Furious franchise, Brie Larson.
There we go.
She was homeschooled from the time she was 8, and according to her, it's because she was weird. I don't think that's a justifiable reason. But if that's the case, hey, it obviously worked out for her.
Well, thanks again, James, for your wonderful work with the trivia world. And we will then transition over to Craig to tell us a little bit about Hailee's snapshot and box office history.
My favorite thing about her box office career is that it's got 19 movies. So I had very little box office research to do. That was exciting. This is one of the ones that putting in the numbers and plugging everything in, it really surprised me how well she does. She doesn't have any really outstanding numbers. And again, she's so young in her career. I don't know that she's necessarily driving box office numbers, but she certainly isn't hurting them. Her overall box office rank is going to be low because she's only got the 19 movies. Her critic ranking is 21st, which is a 61.5. Fan ranking is 58.9, which is 38th. So that's kind of interesting for a young crossover star to have a high critic ranking, but a low fan ranking. And then she's 17th and 30th in the different box office metrics we have. Here's where it floored me. And this shoots her number up. She's currently 6th in IMDb Star Meter ranking at 202. However, between November 21st and December 12th, so for 3 straight ranking periods, she held the number 1 spot on IMDb. And it appears it's all related to Hawkeye. And we'll talk about that obviously later. But because of that, her overall ranking shoots her up to 14th.
Whoa.
On our box office metrics.
I think it goes to show, one, how popular Marvel projects are. And if shooting her to number 1 on IMDb, like that, we haven't encountered that at any episode of anybody yet, where they were number 1 recently.
Yeah.
So that's wild.
The closest we had was Emily Blunt, and she was 2, I think.
Okay. All right. We'll see if the final score is in the 12 to 14 range. You never know. We might get surprised when it's all said and done. So what's interesting, I mean, she's only been acting since 2007. So we're talking about somebody who's only been doing this professionally, or at least semi-professionally, for 15 years. I mean, she's 26?
25. You might be right, 26.
25 and 26. 25. She's young in her career, but it'll be interesting to kind of chart the path so far of where she's been. So first major role is going to be 2010. We've alluded to it a few times, but before that, born in LA, born on the West Coast, out in Rigby's neck of the woods. Her cousin was in a commercial when she was 8 years old. According to her, that's what led her to want to pursue acting. But because she's young, there's not much else out there as to kind of the early days. Like James mentioned, she was homeschooled as she started to do the work and travel. There's just not a lot of like her life early on that's spicy enough to talk about, right? If you go to Wikipedia and look anywhere. So she did a couple shorts in 2008, 2009. She's a Fox and Heather, a fairy tale, and then did an episode of Sons of Tucson in 2010. So that's everything before 2010. But her career blew up in a really cool way after 2010's True Grit, which is what we're calling first major role, and I think in this case it is rightfully earned. And James has the honor of reviewing this one.
True Grit's based on a book by Charles Portis that came out in, I want to say, in the 60s. The main protagonist is a 14-year-old Mattie, who is played by Hailee Steinfeld. And so, again, the main actor of this movie, despite her eventually being nominated for a Best Supporting Actress, she has the most screen time of anyone in this movie by far. So 14-year-old Mattie joins an aging U.S. Marshal played by Jeff Bridges in all of his glory. And then kind of like another lawman who I really enjoyed in this, who was played by Matt Damon. So she is dominating screen time with Jeff Bridges and Matt Damon in her first major roles. Is huge. The plot is that they are tracking her father's killer kind of into hostile Native American territory in the Old West, and it is a Coen Brothers movie. And so, like all Coen Brothers movie, it is beautifully shot. Like the scenery is stunning. There's the typical Coen's quirky moments, and there's also kind of the quirky moments in the cinematography itself. I found the story compelling, and the dialogue was actually pretty I found it kind of dry and funny, which really helps because the atmosphere of the Old West is so bleak that it was kind of refreshing to hear them kind of shit talk each other throughout this story. It was nominated for 10 Oscars and it won 0. That was kind of my brief one. I have a bunch of data I can add in here, but I'd rather hear your guys' opinions on the movie.
I love the irony that you gave us a John Wayne fact the last episode, and this episode you're covering a remake of a John Wayne movie.
Oh, buddy, if you don't think I looked up if because he won an Oscar for his role in this. He played the same role as Jeff Bridges.
Yep.
Wow.
And if you don't think I looked up to see if that's when he tried to beat up that Native American woman, I did look that up, but it was actually a few years later. So, good on John Wayne for at least waiting until 3 years after he won his Oscars to try to assault someone, as opposed to like 10 minutes prior, like Will Smith did. The faves.
Over 10 is just mind blowing, though. Like that hurts.
That's like The Irishman.
Yeah, exactly.
I like True Grit a lot, and I like it better than the last Coen Brothers movie that I had to review, which is Blood Simple. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the only Coen Brothers movie that's a remake. Is that right?
Oh, it has to be, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you count Macbeth.
That's a good point.
It's also the only Coen's brother movie to gross over $100 million.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the reason this movie's good is because, first of all, one of you said it, Jeff Bridges is in his element in this. Similar to his role in Hell or High Water, just like nails every single delivery is just like so good. It's exactly who Jeff Bridges was like made to play. And the fact that Hailee Steinfeld was with him step for step in this is awesome. And I think of the cast in this, like Josh Brolin, Jeff Bridges, Hailee Steinfeld, Matt Damon, as you mentioned, and she's competing with him.
Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah, she's getting nominated for Oscars. Great. This is a top 5 movie from the Coen Brothers for me, for sure.
I was going to say, I think this is one of the most accessible of the Coen Brothers movies, maybe because it is a remake, but it has a lot of the eccentricities of the Coen Brothers movies without the more eccentric and sort of like abstract, I would say, plots, right? This plot is very straightforward, and I think it's like interesting to see those things merge together. And I mean, everything you guys are saying about Hailee Steinfeld in this, just the fact that she's like going toe to toe with all of these massive actors is pretty cool. I think like you also get, she kind of has a personality, I think, in a lot of her films that is like off the beaten track a little bit, kind of annoying. And I think it builds, or, it starts in here.
Angsty teen. Angsty teen is,
but like a little obnoxious too. And I think for this, when she's paired with Jeff Bridges, it really, really works.
Agging him on the whole time.
I think I'm like infatuated with good child actors and I think I unfairly weight the scale for them because I expect them to normally take away from a movie experience, like kind of pull me out of, the immersion. And when they don't and they add to it, I'm like blinders on immediately, like genius, like how could it possibly anyone be better than that? Because it happened with Tysha and I was blown away. And then in this, I was like, oh, okay, Hailee Steinfeld, I know her more as like the pop star. I was like, I wonder what role she is in this. And she's the main role. And she's 14 and looks every bit 14 and is, holding court with these grown men in kind of the old wild West where it's the most dangerous place for a 14-year-old girl to be, especially be orphaned. And I thought she did really well. I was blown away by her performance specifically. And I think her kind of quirkiness did add to the interactions that she had with Jeff Bridges. She's the star of the movie.
She is. Everything, the emotional beat goes through her, right? Like the whole story goes through her. And then number 3, I just read that 15,000 girls applied for the role, and they picked her out of the bunch. So it's not like she had a ton on her resume before this. So remarkable.
She had to audition 8 times for the Coen Brothers. And then they said they picked her because of how well she handled the script, and because the script is a lot. Like, it is a lot of dialogue and it's a lot of conversations that aren't necessarily driving the plot, but are very detailed and kind of combative. And that's just thoroughly impressive for a 13-year-old to handle.
Not a bad way to start your film career, getting in a Coen Brothers movie and getting an Oscar nomination. That's probably going to take you places.
Oh, yeah.
Coming out of that first role in 2010, over the next couple of years, she did 3 more shorts. She did her first TV movie called Summer Camp. And then her first music video was in 2012, a sign of what was to come. She appeared in The Cabs endlessly. Next movie was in 2013. It's called Hate Ship, Love Ship. It's on YouTube. She plays a little angsty teen in that one. Nothing remarkable. Plays Sabbatha. But does get to show off some of her musical talents in 2013's Begin Again as Violet, the daughter of Mark Ruffalo. Good film. Keira Knightley.
Very charming.
Yep. charming film. The director said he never wants to work with a supermodel as an actress ever again. He's not referring to Hailee Steinfeld. He's referring to Keira Knightley. Did read that. But yeah, she gets to show off some of those musical skills in this one. Again, early sign of what was to come. And Mark Ruffalo's just damn good at what he does. So I think that's it.
It would be hilarious to me if at 2013 she is already a pain in the ass. That would have been really funny.
Isn't that like the fear every parent of a child actor has, is like, oh, is this 13-year-old going to get really into coke, or are they going to be like normal? Like, what's going to happen here?
And that's going to take us to the largest audience gap, which is Romeo and Juliet, which is my review. Now, you guys know how much I love a good period piece. You know how much I love a Shakespearean play turned into a film. You know, that's just right up my alley.
Wasn't that your nickname in high school, Shakespeare?
No, my nickname can't be referenced on here on this podcast because someone would use it as blackmail. But I'm clearly lying. I already don't like period pieces. Number two, I hate Shakespeare. I don't hate Shakespeare. I just don't like watching Shakespeare on film. Number three, I don't like great, like shitty remakes. So Romeo and Juliet is I guess at the time, the latest remake of the traditional and well-known story. So if you've never heard of it, and if you haven't, I have questions. I have a lot of questions. But I think before I get into the review, it's important to note that every time I think of Romeo and Juliet, I think of one of my favorite Anthony Jeselnik jokes. And that is, if it weren't for Romeo and Juliet, I would have totally overreacted when my fiance killed herself, which is... I always laugh at. And then he always follows up and says, well, clearly that's not a joke for everybody. I mean, just people who read. And so that's the one I always go back to. But if you're interested in the film itself, because you're like, I didn't know a Romeo and Juliet remake came out in 2013. Here's the actors. It features Stellan Skarsgård. Good. A very young Cody Smith-McPhee, the guy who was just nominated for an Oscar for Power of the Dog. Damian Lewis plays her father. She plays Juliet. Surprise, lead role again. Leslie Manville plays Nurse, which is really cool. Also read that Holly Hunter was originally supposed to play Nurse. And then Leslie Manville was brought in behind. Leslie Manville, awesome actress. So not a bad second choice by any stretch. Paul Giamatti is in this, and he is the best part of the movie. I will say that 100%. He's got a really emotional role at the end. That's pretty awesome. And then Natasha McElhone. The movie follows the plot of the play pretty closely, but it uses little of the language, the Shakespearean language, which I at least appreciated, so I didn't completely fall asleep while I was watching it, because that, like, Tragedy of Macbeth, beautifully shot, cinematography was amazing, Denzel, Francis McDormand, incredible, but holy shit, I just don't care, and it's so hard for me to follow along with that type of dialogue. So you don't get a ton of it.
That is the only movie in the last like 5 or 10 years that I had to stop watching. Like, I just turned to my girlfriend and I was like, I know there's 40 minutes of this movie left, but like, I just like, I can't, I don't understand. I literally don't understand what's going on.
You can't follow along. Yep.
Yeah. I've never read the book, and I guess I don't know English. So it was rough.
No, dude, even when we were assigned the book, like, you would read a page and then the next page was like, I know those were English words you just read, but you obviously don't know what's going on. Here's what he meant by that. I was like, just what is happening here? And Monty, I don't want to spoil the ending for you, but you didn't miss much.
So I'll say this without more negativity on the movie itself. Although she's only 15, I think she plays it like she's 20, even though they want, Lily Collins was the original actress. She's got a ton of screen presence. I mean, you see it in True Grit, but even in this, she's got this magnetic personality every time she's on screen for being a young person. And to your point, James, like, young actors, actresses like that should not have that. Most don't have that level of screen presence. Usually it takes years and years and years for you to be able to master your craft like that. And it's pretty impressive to watch her. I never saw what the gap was, so now I'm going to look at the gap. The gap was 23 for critics, 46 for audiences. So I'm probably I'm like a 35 on this. I'm right in the middle. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but there are much better Romeo and Juliet interpretations that I'd suggest people go watch. That's Romeo and Juliet. 2 years until our next review. 2013, we have Ender's Game. Plays Petra, a movie alongside Asa Butterfield, Viola Davis, Harrison Ford.
That book is so good. That movie is so bad. Have you seen that movie?
I have. It's on HBO Max currently.
It's horrendous. It's like
Mhm.
so disappointing. It's just so disjointed. James, you were talking about like hating bad child actors. I'm sorry. I think Asa Butterfield is terrible in this movie.
I agree. They frame him up as a badass, and nothing about him is intimidating or badass.
It takes you out immediately.
Yeah, it's such a clunky movie, but the book is really cool. I feel like this came out around the time where everybody was trying to make like a new sci-fi franchise thing. And it just feels so lifeless, so forced, so like we're gonna hit the points of what technically constitutes as like a big budget sci-fi movie. So there's a chase scene and there's the training in the school scenes and stuff, but none of it actually like works and the world doesn't feel built in. All the acting is very, very rough. I do think actually Viola Davis and Hailee Steinfeld are fine,
Yeah.
but like, man, it wants to be this, let's introduce the kids, or almost like a Top Gun thing where they're like in the school and they're all hanging out and learning and then they go to the big mission, but it just doesn't work for me at all. It's one of those ones that's like, if I didn't know how good it could be, then I might not hate it as much and it might just be like one of those,
Oh, I see.
okay, this is fine.
You're comparing it to the source material,
Yeah.
right? If it
Yeah.
stood on its own.
Yeah, you're ignorant to its potential, and you're like, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
It's like watching Being the Ricardos and thinking it's a great movie, and then you watch Desi and Lucy and you're like, holy shit, Lucy was funny and there's no humor at all in that movie.
Yeah, that was the one criticism I appreciated, where it's like, this is
It's so brave.
the world-class comedian of that era, and there's no humor whatsoever in the movie. I'm like, that's pretty
Yeah.
funny.
The first movie, when you said this was like the time when they were coming out with a bunch of like fantasy type stuff, the
Yeah.
first movie that came to mind, Maze Runner, came out in 2014.
Oh, there you go.
The
Although I
next year.
kind of like Maze Runner.
I didn't mind it either.
That one's all right. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. All the like YA. This was like when Hunger Games was out, right? So it was all the YA craze too, and
Yep.
everything.
Yep. Couple more projects before next review. We've got 3 Days to Kill. She played Zoe, another troubled teenager role alongside Kevin Costner. Plays like a kind of an assassin alongside Amber Heard,
It was like Born Identity meets Taken.
but shittier.
Yeah,
Is it
so
good?
I was gonna say I liked both of those movies
Yeah.
you just mentioned.
But shittier.
So is this good?
No.
Oh, dang.
I mean, watch for yourself.
So it's like
but-
those two good movies if they were put together and
No.
bad. I kind of like that Costner's transitioned into like shitty dad roles. Not shitty roles, but like roles where he plays bad fathers. Because I think he's pretty good at it. So that stinks that apparently this movie stinks, because I thought he was great in Molly's Game as like the shitty dad.
So following True Grit, we see a couple westerns that she participates in. The first one being The Homesman as Tabitha in 2014, a film alongside John Lithgow. Smaller role in that one, but that's going to take us to another western, The Keeping Room. It is our largest critic gap, and Case has it.
Keeping Room is a 2014 American Western, really kind of a Civil War Western film, directed by Daniel Barber and written by Julia Hart. Stars Britt Marling, Hailee Steinfeld, Muna Uturu, Sam Worthington, and that's really the only ones that jump out at you and have a substantial role. I will make this argument up front and then try to support it. I think if this movie were made in the 2020s, it would have been received much better by the audience. It is a series of jarring like situations and events that these three girls, Britt Marling and Hailee Steinfeld, are sisters, and Muna Utaru is their slave. And it's at the end of the Civil War, and it's as the Union Army is basically making its final marches through the South. I thought it was really interesting at the beginning of the movie, because the first 2/3 of it, there's not a lot of dialogue. I think that probably hurts Hailee Steinfeld in this a little bit, because I don't think she's acting as well as Britt Marling, who's really just stealing the show. I thought it was a really interesting movie. I'd never heard of it. Frankly, I didn't really want to watch it when I was reading the description. But as I was watching the movie, I was really compelled with how I thought there was a natural intensity. There was a natural like sense of doom and gloom, and these three women are trying to basically work their way through it, because their dad and I think brothers, and then the slave's lover were all killed in the war. Well, the slave's lover was killed by accident, but so they don't have any males to help with anything, and the Union Army's coming. The central plot of the story is that the oldest sister, Augusta, played by Marling, basically goes into town, gets the attention of Sam Worthington and Sam Worthington's partner, and the two of them basically follow her back to her house in a very graphic and disturbing scene. The other soldier, not Sam Worthington, rapes Hailee Steinfeld, and Sam Worthington's basically he's pursuing Britt Marling or Augusta. It's just a very tense movie, and I really liked it.
I like the ending. I didn't mind the ending because it's really like these three women defending themselves against these soldiers, and so it to your point, it's kind of quiet. It's not a fast-paced film by any stretch. It just nothing stood out to me comparatively. It was kind of dull to me in certain places.
But what's interesting about it is you say it's not fast-paced, but it really only takes period in a very short, maybe a 24-hour window. Glad you brought up the ending. I saw Roger Ebert's review, and I know Rigby likes him. Roger Ebert says, the film ends with a twist that suggests what lies ahead actually might be more interesting than what we have witnessed so far, which I thought was pretty interesting, because at the very, very end of the movie, you hear the Union Army coming, and the three women decide to dress up as men, set the house on fire, and then escape. Like Roger Ebert says, it's kind of compelling to think about what happened after this. So overall, I really did like this movie. I thought Hailee Steinfeld was good, but I think the first half or first 2/3 of the movie where it's really driven by physical emotion, I don't think she was great at. She probably does better towards the end when she's in more speaking roles. But overall, she's good, just not as good she's not as good at the beginning of the movie as she is at the end.
So where would you fall in the gap?
I'm firmly with the critics on this. I think if this movie was made in the 2020s, I think it would be received a lot better.
High praise. 2015. So very, very busy in 2015. And I think this is where her career goes from, pretty prominent to it's ascending for sure quickly here. So first project in 2015 is 10,000 Saints. She plays Eliza, a movie alongside a pretty stacked cast. Ethan Hawke, Maddie's favorite, Asa Butterfield, is back on the case again. Emile Hirsch, Emily Mortimer, Julianne Nicholson.
He's good, just not an Ender's Game.
Have you seen him in this movie?
I have not.
Have you seen the hair that I want you to Google real quick? Asa Butterfield, 10,000 Saints.
Right.
I want you to look up his hair. Everybody should look it up real quick, and you will understand how obnoxious. About halfway through the movie, he loses that hair.
Anime character.
Yeah, he looks like an anime character. He's got this just single lock that comes over his eyes. It's so obnoxious. The story is about a teen played by Asa. Haley's like a drug addicted teenager who ends up getting pregnant by a kid who dies earlier in the movie. Asa's like best friend. Spoiler alert. And then Emile Hirsch plays a punk rock singer in a band, and they all kind of create their own like surrogate family with Ethan Hawke as the dad. It's just it's a weird movie. It was almost Critic Gap. It's a 58-36 mix. I don't know if I'd recommend it necessarily, but it's unique. I'll give it that. You don't normally see her playing
against character.
A teenager who's gone off the rails. A little bit different. Not quite the teen pregnancy drama that was like Elliot Page and Juno or anything like that. Pitch Perfect 2 played Emily. This is kind of the big one that launched her music career, right, James?
Yeah, so she actually gives credit to this movie for her realizing that she could actually create music as like part of a profession, where she's like, no one had heard me sing at this point. And growing up, like I loved singing and I wanted to be a professional singer, but acting kind of, obviously, if you get nominated for an Oscar in your first role, that's going to take precedent. And after this is when she was like, you know what, let me focus on a music career as well. What I found fascinating is she also says that like she enjoys creating music, and I'm sure we'll get into kind of her music career here in a little bit, because she gets to have a free artistic expression, whereas in movies, you're playing a character, and like you can only give your own kind of interpretation of that to a certain extent. But my criticism is in her music, she doesn't really give you a lot. I feel like she gives you more in her acting roles, even though it's not, her complete, freedom, than in her music, which is like good pop songs. It's not like the darkest where it's like, oh, let me hear of your life. It's more of like, yeah, it's a good pop song.
You guys have seen Pitch Perfect too, right?
They kind of blend together for me.
Okay.
Is Rebel Wilson in all of them?
Yeah. I haven't seen the third one.
I have no idea which ones I've seen and which ones I haven't.
I enjoy the first one quite a bit, actually. The second one's weak. What really pisses me off about it is the premise of Pitch Perfect, right? Is that they are a cappella, right? So they do covers of other songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Pitch Perfect 2, they get invited to like an a cappella world tour thing or whatever, and they like compete against all the different countries and stuff. So there's like Germans and stuff. It's
sounds like Magic Mike XXL, but very different.
Yeah, sort of. But then in the final, they perform Hailee Steinfeld's character's song "Flashlight" that she wrote. So they just do a new song, and it's like, and then they win, and like you're bastardizing the premise of Pitch Perfect, which is that they're a cappella. Like, why? Like, you can't just.
It's not even the concept of the competition.
Yeah, every cover band wants to get out of their cover world and create their own unique.
Yep. But if you're music, in a competition for best cover band, you can't be like, well, yeah, I wrote this really sick song. Like, that's not.
That's true. If you're a cover band and at the end of your set, you're like, by the way, we're going to do this new song. Like, fuck you, get off the stage. We didn't come for that.
Everyone's be like, no one cares, man.
Maddie, what you're saying is you agree with Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
I don't even know what you're talking about. It can be a pretty funny movie though. It's like a fun, bad, dumb movie,
Well, a song I have heard of is Taylor Swift's "Bad Blood," and she appears in that music video along with lots of other like big female stars in the mid 2010s. She's not one of the group that's like marching alongside Taylor at the end. I think she plays like a guard or something in it, but makes the appearance in Tay-Tay's song.
I think they're friends in real life as well, but it could be like one of those celebrity friends where it's like, they weren't a complete psychopath when I met him that one time, so I say we're friends.
That year, she releases her first album, Haze, I assume is how that's pronounced, and 3 of her own music videos, including one with Shawn Mendes. And her song Love Myself made it up to number 27 on the Billboard Pop charts, which was, at the time, the highest debut for a solo female artist in 17 years.
Yeah.
No big deal, right? Got the Oscar nom right out the gate. First album does something no other solo female artist has done in almost 2 decades.
Must be tough being great everything you would, everything you figure you take a shot at.
You can sing, you can act. I mean, she hasn't done any stage work, but I mean, she has a realistic chance to get an EGOT if she really wanted to in her career.
Yeah. You just say that, and then all of a sudden it's like, this is the most moving live performance we've witnessed since Hamlet was actually written and Shakespeare was still alive.
I can't wait for 15 years from now when she's like, oh man, I came all the way from that shitty Romeo and Juliet remake all the way to where I'm at today. And then I'll really feel like my time was spent wisely. Another music piece, she was in a Pentatonics music video as well in 2015. And then she was in the lowest critic score, which is Term Life, 2016.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Rigby's going to talk about it, and I believe the text he sent to the group chat yesterday is, what is this fucking movie with Vince Vaughn and Hailee Steinfeld? Hopefully, maybe he has answers. I don't know. Let's hear.
Yeah, so I've had about 24 hours to process it, and I actually thought about getting my own life insurance after watching this movie. That's how bad it was. So,
dang.
The big picture of this movie is I have never seen so many big stars with so little to work with and so little of their talent used here, and I've never been like I'll admit, like when I saw the cast in this movie, I was excited. It was Jon Favreau, Vince Vaughn, Hailee Steinfeld, Tarja B. Henson, Bill Paxton, who I love, Jonathan Banks. I feel like I'm forgetting some because there's more.
Terrence Howard, Jordy Mola, Shea Wiggum, Mike Epps.
Mike Epps, yes.
Loaded.
To get to the gist of the movie, Vince Vaughn plays he basically gets paid to to come up with the logistics of planning heists, basically. And his daughter, played by Hailee Steinfeld, her name is Kate, is introduced about 20 minutes in the movie. But the point of the movie is that Vince Vaughn has a job that goes bad due to a corrupt cop played by Bill Paxton. One of the guys who paid Vince Vaughn for a heist to plan is the son of a drug lord who thinks that Vince Vaughn is responsible for the job going bad after his son was killed. So Vince Vaughn realizes that he has the heat coming down on him and he's got drug cartels coming after him. And so he wants to enact a new life insurance policy so that when he eventually is killed, his daughter will reap the benefits of his insurance policy. And he has 3 weeks for the insurance policy to come into effect once he applies for it. And the insurance agent who takes the application is Taraji P. Henson, and then you don't see her ever again. It is the weirdest, I don't even call it a cameo. It's like the weirdest performance by like a good actor. And this movie's full of them that they're just never, it's like these actors were just like, I don't know how they read the script and agreed to be in it, because when they showed up, they had to have been disappointed because there's really nothing for them to work with here. Not one single redeemable character in this whole movie. Hailee Steinfeld's probably the best character in the movie, just because she does play like a good teenager well, which is what I guess what they were looking for here, they got it. But I was so disappointed in this movie, so sad, because I love all of these actors, and I haven't looked to see what this director's done, but hopefully
that's what I'm looking up right now.
I wanna say that I just Googled. I have no idea what this is, but I Googled the director, and the director is the little kid from A Christmas Story.
Oh yeah,
Peter Billings.
Oh, Peter Billings.
That's actually not, because he's really good friends with Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau. So
that's probably why I got him. Yep. He directed Couples Retreat,
which is not a bad movie.
That one's okay.
I did not know that. I knew that name sounded familiar, but I was so disgusted by this movie that I refused to do any other further research.
Rigby, that looks like his only 2 directing credits, this and Couples Retreat.
Okay. Yeah. So hopefully he should go back to playing kids who want a Red Rifle BB gun, because this is really bad. It deserves a 0 on it's not Speed 2 bad, but or Dark Crimes bad, but it's up there. At least I finished this one as compared to Dark Crimes. But I'm sure Hailee Steinfeld, obviously she has a successful music career to kind of make up for this stinker of a movie. But
this thing lost over $16 million.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It's
bad.
Really,
it has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. 0.
That's wild.
The first line is Vince Vaughn's narration. He's like, "I plan heists." It's like, really, this is what we're fucking doing. This is the most cliche. Like, it's just not good, man.
And his hair looks like mine, which is awful. You don't want it.
Okay.
I like to watch other people's reviews, so at least somebody say something.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that Rigby said. It is uninspiring. Well, good for all those other actors we might cover one day, because we've got this lowest critic out of the way, so we'll have to get creative with the other actors.
If we ever cover Cain Velasquez, who plays Marco in this movie,
nope.
One of the trivia facts can be attempted to murder a child molester and is currently awaiting trial.
Hero.
Very proudly admitted, yep, I did try to do that.
Fucking deserve it.
We'll see how the trial
Maybe
goes.
I found a review from Brian Tallarico at RogerEbert.com, and it sums up everything you said. Great actors wander in and out of a scene. Some of them get shot, some just disappear, and the move trudges onward. At least it pauses briefly to address Vince Vaughn's ridiculous haircut. Summed up in a nutshell.
I don't recommend watching it. It's on Netflix, but in case you want to, if you need something to fall asleep to tonight, maybe check it out.
Do you like wasting your time watching terrible movies that have no redeeming value? Check out Term Life.
Then this is the podcast for you.
That's a tagline for us, for sure. One more big review, and before that, the only thing to mention is she did a music video with DNC called Rock Bottom in 2016. And then we hit highest critic score. So we go from the lowest of the lows, the 0%, all the way up to highest critic score, which is The Edge of 17, a role that nabbed her Golden Globe and Critics' Choice noms. And Mattie is our guest, Munson. He struck gold this time. Next week, our guest gets lowest critic score. So
Nice.
Matti gets this one, and be interested to see his thoughts.
Edge of 17 or The Edge of 17. It's directed by Kelly Fremont Craig. It's a high school coming of age movie. Hailee Steinfeld plays a junior named Nadine. She has, it's either a twin brother or her slightly older brother, whatever, played by Blake Jenner, is kind of this like hotshot classic jock sort of guy. So he's really popular, and she feels really, really like a dweeb, sort of awkward. And really the one shining thing in her life right now is that her best friend, Krista, who's played by Haley Lou Richardson, like has her back. And sort of the thing that kind of skyrockets the plot of this movie, or kind of causes the tension to build or whatever, is that Krista ends up dating her brother, Darian, and it kind of causes Nadine's life to spiral. I remember when this first came out, and it's got like a 94%, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, 94%. So there was a lot of critical buzz about this movie. So I was really excited for it. And then when I watched it, I was like, not as good as I wanted it to be. But again, I'm glad I had to rewatch this again, because 6 years later, I think this is a really, really phenomenal movie, specifically because we've seen so many of these teenage coming of age films, right? And there's sort of a formula to them. And usually the character is this sort of like nobody or misunderstood kind of angsty person, and everyone else in the world is wrong and they know what's right. And they usually bond about them being an old wizened soul with, some sort of sympathetic adult character, usually a teacher or whatever, and they really get them, and they kind of like learn to grow and survive this world where everybody else is just stupid, but they're right and smart and quirky and unique. And this movie kind of says, what if that was not true, and instead the main character is kind of just sucky, like the character just sort of sucks. And I think it really kind of like where every time you expect a movie like this to zig, this movie zags. And so you've got Woody Harrelson playing her teacher, who just like does not care about her. She always tries to bond with him and be like, I feel like I was born out of this generation. And Woody Harrelson's like, well, what if people just don't like you? And so I think this movie does a really good job at introducing this character, and it does a good job of striking the balance between like telling you why this character is like this, but also kind of holding her accountable for being sort of a piece of shit, like all kids are. It just feels like a very real portrait of what a high school rom-com coming of age would be, in a way that I think like Booksmart is sort of like a more raunchier version of this. So if you haven't seen this, I would really, really recommend checking it out. It's really funny. Mm-hmm. All the characters feel rounded, and all of them feel flawed, right? Like there's no perfect character. And what's interesting about this movie is that it's not really about Krista betraying her trust and starting to date her older brother. And it's not really about her relationship with the Hayden Zito character. It's kind of just like about this character learning to be a little less shitty, despite having some pretty shitty things happen to her. And I think that's a super relatable story. I would really recommend this one for people who haven't seen it.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, when Woody Harrelson says, hey, I've got a tip for you, I got a recommendation, you should get a life, I was like, oh, fuck. Teachers can't say that to a student.
He has a bunch of those, yeah, where like he definitely would not be allowed to say that, right? Like in the beginning, the opening scene is she just goes to him and is like, I'm going to kill myself. And which is, I should say, sorry, like trigger warning, of course. And it's not something that you can easily joke about, but in the movie it works perfectly, where he's just like, yeah, I'm going to kill myself too because you keep talking to me. And it's just, it's such like a riff on those, like The Perks of Being a Wallflower is the one that comes to mind, or Dead Poet Society or something, where it's like, we're so misunderstood. And it's like, no, the world's not that deep sometimes. Sometimes you kind of just suck and you have to realize that everybody else sucks too. Great movie.
Their dynamic is, I think, my favorite part of the movie. I mean, when she's like shitting on him, like, you met, a guy that makes $35,000 a year, blah blah blah.
Kyle, I was gonna say that's the best line. Is she's just undressing him because he's not giving in to her kind of self-pity.
Yeah,
and she's making fun of every aspect of him, and then she mentions how much money he makes. And it's like, instead of being pissed off, which he has every right to be because she said some mean shit.
Terrible.
Yeah, he's just like, you're the first person who's ever actually underestimated the amount of money I've
That part made me feel good.
He's like, that's the first time it's ever happened.
Yeah. This film really took advantage of Hailee Steinfeld as an actor. Like, she feels a bit off, right? I said she had homeschooled vibes. Like, she is just a little weird, at least the way that she presents herself. And I think sometimes the movies with her try to be like, hey, this person's like not one of the most attractive people ever. And like, that can be a little annoying. Movies do that all the time.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, look, she's got glasses on. Isn't she ugly? I was like, no, she's not. I was like,
Yeah.
It's a stunningly attractive person with glasses. That's what that is.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that in this. And like, even like her friend, Haley Lou Richard, like they're both just very like classically beautiful women. I think still that like the kind of quirky offbeatness that she, and like the annoyingness that she has in like True Grit and Pitch Perfect 2 and some of her other stuff really works here.
This is my favorite role of hers.
Yeah.
If I was going to pick my number one, it would be Edge of 17. And she's great in True Grit, don't get me wrong, but like the amount of energy she brings to this role, especially when like she tells her brother dibs on the house for the weekend when mom goes out of town, and then just next thing you know, he's got all his boys over in the pool. I was like, so relatable.
Yeah.
So relatable.
Yeah, and it's just her and her best friend, and they're shit-faced in her room. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what two kind of like loners would be doing. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think this works if you have an actor that isn't charismatic enough to make the character likable or understandably sympathetic, despite her doing and saying some pretty terrible things. Go watch it. It's on Netflix.
So that's the last big review. So we're just going to cruise right to modern day where we're at now. But a jam-packed 5 years. So a lot more music videos. So she did one alongside Zed in Grey called Starving, which is probably her most like popular song. I think it's number 2 in terms of total Spotify listens.
Yeah, song's very catchy. I knew that song before I knew it was her singing it.
I had no clue it was her until 2 weeks ago. When we started digging into this, I was like,
yep.
Oh shit, that's Hailee Steinfeld. I've heard this song tons of times.
Yep.
But as of 2016, 2017, she reached 1 billion Spotify streams. So just to show how popular her music is, she's done very well.
Suck it, Tyrese.
Suck it, Tyrese. Reprises her role in Pitch Perfect 3 in 2017, and then makes her appearance as Charlie, the lead, in 2018's Bumblebee, a movie that Mark Yerke raved about on our Angela Bassett episode and said, you guys should watch it.
Great.
Did anybody watch it? Anybody? I love it. I think it's fantastic.
I did, and I was so pleasantly surprised because Transformer movies, I really liked the first one, and so I was so excited for the second one to come out. And I was just continuously slapped in the face by Michael Bay, and everyone that came out was more and more offensive. And so when this came out, I was like, no, I'm not doing it again. I'm not falling for this again. I am so insulted they're still making it. And then after hearing all the great reviews, finally watched it, and it is such a cool way to tell this story. It is like kind of a prequel, but it's got like, you know, big Iron Giant vibes to it. It's just really well done. And she's acting against nothing but a blue screen. And so it's probably tremendously difficult for her to add heart to that story, because Bumblebee comes across like a kind of like a pet, right? Where like you could tell if he's happy or if he's sad, but he can't communicate. But on her end during acting, like she's probably just like reacting to a golf ball or some shit. Like it's like, hey, we think we're going to put him over here. Yep. Like, oh, cool. I'll pretend to cry.
She's very charming in that role. Very charming.
This is almost highest critical score. That would be wild.
It is. It's very close. Very, very close. And Angela Bassett, she's the main baddie. We said she gets a ton of screen time, right? Not only the first female Transformer. I mean, she's the antagonist of this movie. So it's a cool film. Is it the highest rated Transformer movie? When I told you I was going to see Ambulance, the latest Michael Bay film, I know you said you don't have to see it. And that's true. But I will say, I
heard that was good.
And a lot of people like it.
The reviews are like, yeah, it's like, trust me, you want to hate it, but it's actually pretty good.
All right, so here's the movie James was talking about. She plays Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Here's the question. Rigby, did you watch the movie?
No. Why just me?
Are you kidding?
Because you're the only one who has like you're like Martin Scorsese, but in human form on this podcast, where it's like, oh, why would I ever watch such, elementary
entertainment?
Yeah, lowbrow entertainment.
I love A Night at the Roxbury. Come on, we just reviewed that. I just don't like cartoons and Marvel movies.
I will proudly say that this is my favorite Spider-Man movie by far.
Yeah.
Not remotely close. And I am only putting above it in regards to superhero movies, the final two Dark Knight movies. Logan is close, but I still think this is like a firm number 3.
I won't disagree with you.
It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's top 5 for everybody.
people would push it off and they're like, well, it's a cartoon. And then it also definitely got pushed back because it was like, oh, is this like like a woke thing? They got a black Spider-Man now. If you watch this movie, you will stop having these stupid conversations. I promise you, because they address everything and it makes so much sense and it is beautifully done.
It is so funny too.
Was a comic before this with Miles Morales, so it's not like they created a movie. They didn't create the character, right? And Gwen Stacy is
Awesome soundtrack.
one of the Spider-Man variants from in the multiverse. I did not realize it was Hailee Steinfeld, to be honest.
Either did I.
Did not know it was her voice.
Are they doing like a all-female spin-off or something? Didn't they announce that at some point with like her and Silk and a bunch of the other female Spider characters?
Olivia Wilde is directing a secret
Yes.
Sony picture, but it's anticipated it's going to be Spider-Girl. So probably.
Okay.
And they're in post-production for the follow-up to this.
Mm-hmm.
So they've already filmed it and they're just putting the animation
There's 2 of them
together.
coming too.
It's supposed to come out.
Like
It's part
two,
1. The first part's coming out next year. But I couldn't recommend this enough. Even if you don't know shit about Spider-Man, it goes out of its way to make like light of that and immediately catch you up to speed, and awesome animation that makes it feel like a comic book. It has a ton of heart. I couldn't recommend it enough.
Co-signed.
Now I feel like it's not watching it.
It's not streaming free anywhere right now, unfortunately, too, which is a challenge.
I like the Spider-Man video game with Miles in it, but I didn't see the movie.
A couple things after that. So she made a very brief appearance as a singer in one of my favorite music videos from the past couple of years, and that's Lil Dicky's Earth. She plays the common fungus. So it's brief. He's got a lot of singers in that one, but if you haven't seen that before, definitely go watch that music video. It's really funny. She plays herself in a scene in Between Two Ferns, the movie, and has one of those stereotypical awkward interviews with Zach Galifianakis.
It's like, oh, so you're in Pitch Perfect 2 and Pitch Perfect 3. He's like, have you apologized to your fans for insisting to only be in the shitty Pitch Perfects?
So good.
I think he's great on that show. Like, I know it's scripted and they're in on the joke for the most part, but like his brand of humor is perfect for that.
Bradley Pitts. His interview with Brad Pitt is really fun.
What did they list her name as? Hey, it was really a funny reading of it.
Something Seinfeld. He always does that. But that's on Netflix. Go check it out. Really funny if you enjoy the Galifianakis model.
Her name, and it was H. Lee Seinfeld. And Seinfeld was in quotes.
H. Lee Seinfeld. Oh, man. Another brief appearance in 2019's Charlie's Angels. She plays one of the angel recruits in like the post-credit scene with Aly Raisman and Lily Reinhart, which is like my young actress, like heaven. Those 3 in one place. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, Charlie's Angels. Would love to see that sequel. Let's go. They are the recruits.
I didn't know that Banks wrote and directed that.
Mm-hmm.
She did the previous 2 Pitch Perfects, right? 2 and 3.
That's why we bring you on, Matti, so you can connect the dots. Hailee released her second album in 2019 called Half Written Story. 5 music videos on the YouTube came from that, so there's a lot of singles from that. And she also directed her only directing credit up to this point. She directed her music video for I Love Yous. So maybe that'll lead to other directing of shorts and feature films. Who's to know? I haven't seen any interviews where they ask her about that.
Based on her hit rate, it'll be like, yeah, I just kind of figured I'd try this directing thing out. Lo and behold, I win an Oscar for it. Who could have saw that coming?
Weird. Just try anything. And then 2019 to 2021, she plays Emily Dickinson in the show Dickinson on Apple TV Plus, a show that I'd always heard about. I finally got around to actually watching I made it to like episode 6 or 7. I enjoyed it for what it was, because it kind of turns.
It's very weird.
It's a modern take on kind of like a period piece story.
Is her character a critical role in this series?
Small role in Dickinson. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, she's the lead. Everything runs through her in the show. And there's a lot of drugs. There's some lesbian sex scenes with her. Surprise if you didn't know Emily Dickinson was into women. You do now. I think it's worth a watch. Matti, would you recommend it to people?
I think if I stopped watching after a couple episodes because I just wasn't feeling it. It's a very particular show, and I think if you watch the first one and you like it, it's very well made. Like pretty much everything on Apple TV Plus, it's just like a very specific vibe that I was not vibing with. But
Not feeling. Yeah.
But I would not recommend it.
And then another lead role in a TV show in Arcane. She plays V from 2021, which I believe is connected to the League of Legends universe. And I know the second season was greenlit, so that's coming at some point. And I assume she's going to resume her role in that. But it's not on her IMDb yet, at least. So animated show. I watched a little bit of it, but it's not really my jam, so I didn't get terribly far into it. But another lead role.
It's on my to-do list. I've heard really good things about it.
It's pretty clear at this point that she's not much of a supporting character at this point in her career. It's all lead roles for her, which takes us to our last role we're going to talk about, which is her new character in the Marvel universe. So we had Gwen Stacy in the Sony side, going to the other side, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She played Kate Bishop in the Disney Plus show Hawkeye.
She's the best part of the show, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Her and Flo Po. Yeah, she kind of like takes the show away from Jeremy Renner.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
what they want, right? That's kind of they're handing it off.
I said going to number 1 on IMDb, she has to steal the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 weeks straight.
Yeah, because this is one of the, just like a lot of the other projects, movies, or shows right now, Marvel is slowly handing off. They know the Guardians of the Galaxy get one more movie, then they're gone out of the picture. Like Thor, Love and Thunder, handing it off to Jane. Like they're moving away from all the original Avengers and bringing in a lot of these new, younger characters and characters like Moon Knight. So they chose her strategically to be one of these new young Avengers. And I think it was a great choice.
I mean, it's so interesting to see them do this with people that, in my opinion, are so clearly like movie stars, right? Like her and Florence Pugh are like movie stars, and they're being introduced in Disney Plus TV shows. And I liked Hawkeye. It'll be really interesting to see when and how they bring them into the movies, and whether, I don't know, like, does she get her? I mean, I guess Jeremy Renner never got his own movie, but like, what is her role going to be in when she's next to like Anthony Mackie and Simu Liu and all that stuff? I'm really excited to see them like have movie star roles, you know?
I mean, ultimately, that show's setting up Kingpin and the street level Marvel crew going forward. So I know Echo's getting her own show at some point. Daredevil obviously was introduced in the Spider-Man movie, so they're going to bring a lot of those like non-supernatural, non-magic folks and start to build that world out.
That'll be cool. Yeah.
It will.
She's great in this role.
But again, she's in her mid-20s and playing a character, correct me if I'm wrong, who seems like the back end of her teenage years. So she's still not playing like a grown woman. She's still playing a young woman, even though she's in her mid-20s. So I'll talk about it here in a little bit. I'm very interested with her career going forward when she transitions to playing adult roles versus playing younger people.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because she looks so young, so she can still do it. But I'm really interested when her agent and team is going to start to have her take on more dramatic adult roles. I just don't know.
Yeah.
She's in her pocket. I don't know if you leave it. If you still look good, you look young, why leave it if it works?
Well, and in Hawkeye, she's still kind of playing that like annoying thorn in the side of Jeremy Renner, right? Like that sort of like
Esther,
too optimistic for her own good kind of thing. So I feel like eventually she'll have to shake that, or she'll want to shake that and take a little bit more. It's not that she doesn't do serious roles, right? Like The Edge of 17, it's a comedy, but it's relatively like dramatic stuff. But like, you know, more very, very dramatic roles. I wonder how she'll handle those.
It's the issue of, you see a lot of child actors who are super successful when they're younger, where they're playing age appropriate roles to start. And that's actually a rarity, where it's like, oh, that's a 14-year-old playing a 14-year-old. And it's like, oh, I've known this person for 10 years. And you're like, oh my God, she's playing a high schooler. It's like, this is actually like when actors normally play high schoolers when they're 25 and 26. she was just playing a high schooler when she was actually a high schooler. And so we're like, oh, I want to see her grow out of this. And it's like, there are probably 30-year-olds who are playing high schoolers still.
That brings us to 2022 modern day and gets us into some top performances from Rigby. Let's see what he's got. I'm sure he's waking up from all the Marvel conversation that we're having right now.
We got a list from Collider from December 5th, 2021. So it's updated, and it involves TV and film, and it's ranked numerically, and it's 9 selections.
You knew all the questions we were going to ask. It's like we've done this 58, 59 times before.
Getting it all out of the way.
All right, I'm going to throw it out there. Edge of 17. Please be number 1.
Number 1.
Yes.
Nice job.
True Grit.
True Grit.
Number 2.
Yep.
Now we just got to keep going. All right, what's number 3? Bumblebee.
Number 5.
Good call.
5.
5.
Very good call, though.
Okay.
Dickinson. Will be
Number
in
3.
there. Yeah.
She's good in that show. I agree.
We need 4.
Pitch Perfect 2.
Hawkeye?
No to both of those.
Oh,
Spider-Verse, even though she's a side character.
Number 8.
number 8. Begin Again.
No.
I don't want to guess Ender's Game.
Ender's Game, Matti, is number 10. Nice. Or number 9. Nice work. So we need 8, we need 6, and we need 4.
What is 4?
Between 2.
There's no way that made it.
Is Arcane 4?
Yes.
Wasn't that Hideo where we were just like, dude, we give up, just tell us? Like,
It was
there's
somebody
no
before
chance.
that, too. I think both of them were. All right, so what were the top 3 again, Rigby?
Edge of 17, number 1, True Grit 2, and Dickinson 3.
I like that.
I vibe with that.
I can vibe with that.
I haven't seen Dickinson, so I'll just have to take your word for it.
She's doing a lot.
She is. I mean, quite the pop for only having done this for like 14 years.
Yeah, and this is kind of the Jennifer Lopez problem is like she's just as popular now as a musician as she is as an actress. I think that's really saying something too.
Let's get into the Munson Meter. What we do is we rate every actor on a scale of 0 to 100 based on a variety of factors that could include anything from longevity, project choice, pop culture impact, their acting range, awards footprint, any other talents they might have, their personal life, comedic chops, box office success or lack thereof, and anything else that matters to us as Munsons. So this time we will start with Case.
I didn't know a whole lot about her before this episode. I tend to focus primarily on film, and I do tend to focus a lot on the numbers. So it's kind of a 50-50 thing for me. I do like that she is multi-talented. Obviously got the respect of a lot of decision makers in Hollywood. There's some relevance to that. And she was phenomenal in True Grit. To continue to have a good career after such a breakout performance so early, I do think is really impressive. The longevity obviously is not there, but it really can't be because she's just not been around that long. Everything else is kind of falls into kind of limbo and in an area where I don't really know how I feel. Kind of line her up with a couple of the other performers we looked at, and I'm going to give her a 65.
Right. James.
It's going to make my score seem like I'm following Craig here, which is upsetting. But Craig, great score. I also gave her a 65.
Nice.
On my end, I think she has the makings of being a world-class actress. I think it's all the makings, right? You see the personality. She's bursting with personality. She can play, a quirky know-it-all to kind of like a stubborn and aggressive, flawed teenager. Like there's so many aspects of the roles that she's played, and she's only played the quote-unquote young adult roles, and you've already seen kind of the spectrum that she's able to perform in, which I think is really impressive. What I find interesting is that I think her music career is going to get in the way of her movie career, because I think she has tapped into this like kind of pop EDM mixture and has been super successful at it. And so like you listen to her songs and they're so catchy and they're like manufactured to be top 40 hits, right? And so where she gives you this real authentic version of, or at least authentic version of characters in the roles she plays, you don't really get that in her music yet. You might get it soon, right? She kind of becomes more comfortable expressing herself, because at the moment it's more like, again, classic young adult stuff where it's like, oh, I love you, but you kind of did me wrong, and this beat's great, and you're singing this in your car, and you're going to play it again. And there is a place for that, and I appreciate that. But I am selfishly hoping that she focuses more on the acting career because, one, I clearly am a big fan of movies, hence episode 60. But two, she is tremendously talented.
Yeah.
I thought she was well-deserved of that nomination, and she was 14 years old up against heavyweights in the industry. And I'm excited to see where her career goes from there. And so I also gave her 65.
Matti, our guest Munson.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with pretty much everything that Case and James are saying. I think I would go actually a little bit higher, though. Maybe I'm just, I'm the outsider on this
Score shame.
ranking. So yeah,
We don't score shit.
so I'm gonna go with a 75. I think. I don't know. I don't have much else to add other than what James and Case already said. What will be really exciting, and you already said this too, Kyle, but just to see where she goes, I think the promise of what she has left to do is really exciting, and maybe that is making me overrate her a little bit or whatever. But like, I can completely see her taking on all sorts of different types of roles. So hopefully she does that. I mean, if she doesn't want to, then all the power to her. She can keep making music. But I really think that I could see her in all types of roles right now. As we're saying, she does just do I don't know if similar is a fair assessment, but like the type of characters that she plays are all very quirky or like kind of bubbly, spazzy, off the beaten path kind of thing. And I could also see her taking very traditional, just traditional roles as well that are where she's playing it much more straight, much more dramatic, and it'd be really interesting to see her do those. So I think looking at a young actress and being like, I can't wait to see what she does is a really important part of that star quality making thing. So I'm gonna go with 75, I think.
Okay. Rigby.
Yeah, so you guys hit it all. I mean, she's obviously uber talented. Her singing is, even though I'm not really too familiar with the songs, it's the fact that she has 11 million monthly listeners is really impressive. Love True Grit, loved her performance in that. Totally deserving of Best Supporting Actress in that. Probably can't think of a better way to start your career than working with the Coen brothers and getting nominated for an Oscar. So I think that's really saying something. Kyle, you made a great point about when her roles will start transitioning to a little bit more mature, less angsty, young teenager like. Because even in Term Life, which is the movie I hated, she's supposed to play like this independent daughter, but at the same time she's still like that annoying kind of teenager who has to rely on her dad. So I'm wondering when she'll snap out of that and become the actress that I know that I think she will become, and that's a award nominated, if not award winning one. So, but that being said, there's not enough really to grade her too high of a score. So all that being said, I'm going to give her a 73.
Okay, so I'll round us out. You guys hit a lot of it. I mean, talented actress, talented singer. So she comes with a lot of tools. I found her humor pretty entertaining. She also seems very genuine in her interviews, and she's very quirky. I don't think the quirkiness is just on screen. I think that's her personality too. I respect that she's like in her mid-20s, and people are asking her like, "Are you dating people?" And she's like, "Nah, I'm just doing me for right now." I think she's just living her best single life, or some version of that, out on the West Coast. Got to respect that. But what I was really impressed by her is she's at such a young age demonstrated that she can carry a franchise, she can carry a film on her back. I mean, right out the gate. A lot of actors we cover never get to that lead category. They end up being a character actor most of their career. She made it clear from the jump that she can carry big money franchises. And the fact she's 14th out of 60 in the box office side, I mean, it says something about her ability. Some of the stuff you guys didn't mention, her charity work, even at her age, she's done work with What's Your Mission, No Kid Hungry, the We Movement, the Ryan Seacrest Foundation, Rhiannon Seacrest Foundation, and Make-A-Wish. So she's not only doing great stuff on screen, she's spending her time and her money on things that matter to her. So I give her some bonus points there. While the range isn't there yet, like you said, Rigby, and like you said, Matti, I'm just really interested to see how she transitions in some other different types of roles going forward. So with that, I'm going to give her a point less than James and Craig. So I guess I'm the low person on the totem pole this time. I'm going to give her 64. So quite lower than her 14 in the box office. And that puts her between Bonnie Hunt and Matthew Broderick.
Hollywood royalty.
What do we think about that?
I think that's extremely fair.
You guys do a lot of good actors, so that makes sense to me.
James, what does she have coming?
We mentioned earlier how Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. Well, they are making a sequel to it. It's coming out in October, called Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. That is going to come out this year. It's with, she's renewing her role, but it's also along Jake Johnson, Oscar Isaac, Shameik Moore, and Issa Rae. And then the all-female version that you guys mentioned earlier is currently in production, and that is supposed to come out next year. So that'll be 2023.
Superhero stuff coming, and then season 2 of Arcane as well on the horizon. 5 actors that we threw onto the wheel for episode 61, which will drop on May 5th. And our featured guest is Mike Vandevoort. He's actually our first new guest we've had in a while. He's a Phi Psi from Butler. He's a really interesting guy. He does something called Zooming the Movies, where they'll do reenactments of films, and they'll take on certain roles and do those. Kind of like live. It's basically like a live play, but over Zoom instead of in person.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting for him to learn a little bit more about what they've been doing. So it seems pretty cool. So he's coming on to talk about one of these 5. We've got Anthony Mackie, Annette Bening, Evan Jones, Frank Langella, and Dylan Minnette. What do we like? What do we dislike? And what do we think Mike might pick, even though you guys don't know much about him?
If he picks Evan Jones, who I had to look up, and for those of you at home listening, that's Cheddar Bob, I'll be kind of upset.
Well, looking at this list, there's a couple different opportunities to watch 8 Mile with him and Mackie in there. It's like half the cast.
Papa Doc's real name is Clarence.
His parents
Sorry.
have a real good marriage.
They have a really good marriage.
I went to
I love
Cranbrook.
that movie. 8 Miles great.
That's right.
Annette Bening is obviously the prestige pick here.
I think it's Frank Langella is the prestige pick. That's just me, though.
I think they're both uneven playing. They're both prestige picks. I think you're both right. They're both damn good.
Frank Langella won for something.
I don't know.
Or was he just nominated recently? I swear he was at
Ross Nixon,
I
maybe?
think he was nominated. No, he wasn't nominated for Trial of the Chicago 7. Yeah, he got nominated for Frost Nixon. Yeah,
Which he's damn good in that.
Great movie.
he's really good in The Americans too.
Mm-hmm. He's in the box with James Marsden and Cameron Diaz.
Yeah, and I don't know Cheddar Bob. I don't really know much about him other than Cheddar Bob, so that'll be an interesting one.
He shoots himself in the dick in that one movie.
The one we keep talking about.
I also didn't know who Dylan Minnette is, and then I looked him up, and I actually like him. He's young. He's only been in a couple things, but in the things I've seen, I've enjoyed him. I thought he was great in Scream.
Scream. He's in the Goosebumps movie.
He's in that 13 Reasons Why thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And while that show is flawed, it is not flawed because of him.
Yep. And he's in Prisoners, too.
Love that movie.
Mm-hmm. This is not Mackie's first appearance on the wheel either. He's been on here before and not selected.
I enjoyed him in The Night Before. Thought he was very funny.
We get a lot more Marvel talk right up Rigby's alley. What else has he been in lately?
He's in a few Spike Lee movies too. Anthony Mackie.
Oh, is he?
I always think of like The Adjustment Bureau, 8 Mile.
I know Hurt Locker is one of his big ones.
Hurt Locker's good. Yeah,
Oh, that's right. Hurt Locker's
he's
very
in Detroit,
intense.
which I thought was really good. Super underrated.
Half Nelson's a good movie too with Ryan Gosling.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since I've seen that, but I would rewatch that for sure.
Yeah, you look up Evan Jones's IMDb, and it's a different actor by the name of Evan Jones, who was born in 1927 and is currently dead. So the guy that we look up underneath him, it's like, oh, you mean this Evan Jones? Yeah, he died. No, different dude, just very common name.
Yep. All right, so you guys don't know much about Mike, but who do we think Mike picked?
Well, as a fellow fraternity brother, my guess is Anthony Mackie.
I was going to say Mackie too. I feel like he's been on the wheel enough. His time has come.
Maybe. Case, you got a guess?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mackie. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon.
All right, Matti, who would you pick if we were going to do back-to-back Matti Groll episodes?
Mackie.
Oh, man, we got a clean sweep for Mackie. All right,
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. We don't decide. Mike doesn't decide. Monty doesn't decide. The wheel decides, and we'll see how she goes.
Can we talk about secrets of our fraternity during the podcast?
we would do that with John Rigby or any one of these other ones.
That's true. That's true.
Marty, always fun, man.
Yeah, dude.
Glad to have you again. This is the hot ones. This camera, this camera, this camera. Your chance to shine. Any words of wisdom for the audience? Want to talk a little bit about your YouTube, Twitch channels?
Yeah. I go by Flygon HG on YouTube and Twitch. If you are interested in Pokemon content, I do a lot of Pokemon stuff. Playthroughs of the older games, the newer games, with rule sets that make them harder and hopefully more interesting. So it's been really, really fun to get to do that. I love Pokemon. It's been something I've done since I was 5. So it's really cool to actually kind of like make a living around it. So I really, really love doing it, put a lot of effort into it. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, give me a follow, check out some of my videos. They're really fun. But yeah, looking forward to talking with you guys again. I love coming on here, and it's always fun. Thanks for making me feel like part of the group.
Dude, we love having you on here, man.
We'll share your videos online.
Thank you.
We always share your YouTube channel. Last time we had you, you were kind of on the upswing of your channel. So whenever you come back in like 7 months, you'll be too cool for us because you'll be so big by then. You'll be getting 11 million streams. You'll be Hailee Steinfeld level. And we'll just...
Yeah. Where's my Munson's episode?
Well, as we wrap this episode up, episode 60, you can find us on Twitter, Munson's at Movies. You can find us on Instagram, Munson's at the Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from Hailee Steinfeld?
You're a dick. Maybe nobody likes you, huh? You're always in a shit mood. You're a really shitty teacher. You put zero effort into everything you do here, and there's no way you're proud of that. Look at you. Look like you do nothing. Look at your hair. You don't do your hair because you don't have any hair. You're bald. And you know what? You know why you're not married? Because bald men are gross and they're disgusting, and especially the ones that make $45,000 a year.
Munson's out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?
You have 12 million Instagram followers. How long did it take you to apologize to each one of them for Bumblebee? I walked out of that movie. I'm just kidding, I didn't walk out of the movie. I skipped out because I was so happy to be leaving.